Bienvenido Desde Cero. Welcome to Right from the Start. On today's podcast, we have news anchor and KBTX executive producer and also local social media star, Rusty. Is it Surette?
It's Surette, yes, sir.
Rusty Surette, welcome to the podcast. I appreciate you being here.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the invite to this.
Thank you. Well, again, welcome, and thank you for being here, and let's get started right from the beginning.
I appreciate
Desde Cero, that's what it means, right from the start.
Desde Cero.
That's right. And it's going to be in Spanish, by the way.
I said I'm going to rely a lot on Duolingo on this.
Well, let's get going. Where's Rusty from? Where were you born, Rusty?
Port Arthur, Texas.
Port Arthur, Texas.
Right on the Louisiana border. On
Beaumont
on
area.
The coast, Beaumont, Port Arthur, Orange. They call it the Golden Triangle. And that's where I was born and stayed until I graduated high school.
And parents?
Parents never left. My whole family, my entire family is still in Port Arthur.
Wow.
And my dad passed last year, but mom's still there. I occasionally try to convince her to come up here, move up here to the Brazos Valley.
Right.
But man, they're hometown people. They will never leave that place.
Right. They're settled there. They have their home there.
Yeah.
Everything's...
The only time they're leaving is if they've got to evacuate for a hurricane. And even then, I got to
drag them out.
drag them out. Yeah.
Yeah. Siblings?
One sister.
One
sister younger. She's got 3 beautiful kids, and she lives with my mom, so she helps out there. And they're Port Arthur for life.
Okay. Married?
I am married. Got married December. Got married in December.
This December. This past December. Congratulations.
So, but we've been together for 5-6 years. Strike that. I can't remember.
I already get in trouble. We just started the podcast.
We're not even 5 minutes in.
Did you grow up in Port Arthur?
Yes, sir.
How was your childhood in Port Arthur?
It was wonderful. Lived with my grandmother quite a bit, but my parents raised me. We all grew up. All the family lived in the same neighborhood. Most of my neighbors were they were either Black or Vietnamese, and so I grew up exposed to a lot of different culture, especially living so close to a lot of Vietnamese families, which are pretty populated in the Port Arthur area because you got the shrimping business, and you're right there on the coast. I went to school beginning in my middle school to a neighboring city and community where my other grandparents lived.
What city was that?
Port Neches, Texas.
Port Neches?
Port Neches, Texas.
Never heard of that.
It's right in between Beaumont and Port Arthur. Okay. It's a smaller community. Couple of refineries that are there. I mean, refineries are all over there. But that's hometown. That's where I grew up, and I stayed there until 1997 is when I moved away.
Where did you go to high school? Is the same city?
Port Neches. So they call it P&G. It's Port Neches Groves. It's a 2-city, 1-school district town, right bumped up next to Port Arthur.
How were your high school years? Did you play sports? Did you just study? What was your?
I was a nerd.
Music?
Oh, I was a nerd. I was such a nerd. I did no sports. When I entered high school, my interest in news started, and I remember going to our journalism program in the high school, which didn't accept students, I think, until the sophomore or junior year. But I went in as a freshman, and I remember going in after class one day, and I said, I really want to start taking pictures for the high school newspaper and the yearbook. And they said, well, we don't let freshmen do this. I said, no, you don't understand.
Right.
This is something that I want to do. I have nothing else to do.
What was that reasoning for you wanting to be a journalist? So at such a young age.
So it started, and not to go down this dark hole, but in my family, we grew up in a pretty rough family that was kind of plagued with drugs and alcoholism. We've got some family members with mental health issues. So growing up, it wasn't uncommon to have law enforcement come out to our home. And so being exposed to that, I developed an appreciation for what law enforcement do. And I had this desire to go down that route. So when I was in high school, I joined our criminal justice program. My career path, I expected it to be something in law enforcement. I wanted to be a police officer. So, long story short, in middle school, as I'm getting into high school, I had my first police scanner at home. When I tell you I was a nerd, I really was a nerd. I had my first police scanner at home. That's all I would listen to. I was obsessed with listening to the police scanner stuff. And then I got a video camera. Remember when we had big VHS video cameras? We'd have to tote around. Well, I ended up getting one of those, my first one to use was my grandparents. They had one of those big ones.
Right.
And what I would do is I would listen to the police scanner, and if something was close enough, I could hop on my bicycle and take that big video camera, and I would go down.
Okay.
So if there was like a car wreck or a fire or something, I'd get on my bicycle and I'd pedal down there, and I would shoot that with my video camera. When I was 14, I would take those videos, the VHS tape,
Right.
physically take them down to, we had a TV station not too far from where I grew up. And I would take it down to the TV station, and I'd go knock on the door and say, I have video of this thing, fire, crime scene, whatever. Do you want to buy it? And they would buy them. I think it was $50 a pop. And when you're in 1994 and you're 15, $50 a tape, that's a good deal.
That was a lot of money back
Oh,
then.
it was great. So that kind of was my introduction into journalism, and by doing that work with the video cameras and seeing the process of what they would do with the stories at the TV station, my desire to go into law enforcement started to shift to journalism a little bit. Okay, there was much more excitement to it.
Right.
And when I turned 16, the TV station that I would go sell these tapes to eventually hired me on as a part-time tape editor. So when I went to the journalism classes in high school and I said, look, this is really what I want to do. I want to learn more about using the cameras, taking still photos, going into the journalism department. They shooed me away at first and said, okay, well, maybe we can use you to take pictures at the track meet or the high school football games.
Even with the experience that you had outside of school, they still didn't let you in.
They were just because you had to be a sophomore before, and I'm in there as a freshman saying, no, I want to do it now. Give me a camera. I'll go do this. I wanted to do as much as I could and learn as much as I could with still photography. This was before digital photography really was a thing. Editing. I didn't have an editing system at home. This was before we did everything on computers. We're still tape-to-tape editing.
What year is this?
This is 1995, 94, 95. So, I mean, really, the internet's not even around at that point. And it just was this desire to learn as much as I could about photography, reporting, journalism, while also still having a desire to do something with law enforcement, first responder, helping people.
Right.
And that desire to help came out of seeing with my own eyes as a child what it is that law enforcement could do to help families, because they were the ones who would come in when our family was having an issue. They came in to help quiet it down.
Yes.
To solve. And so seeing that, that's I want to do that. And I knew there was either I could go down that road, or there was this other thing, which was journalism, that was kind of boiling up on the side, and me realizing, I can.
And I imagine it was more fun than.
It's a lot. It was. I often describe it as I still get the adrenaline rush. I still get to help people. I get to tell stories. Right. I just don't have to get my hands dirty with it like a law enforcement officer does, or a paramedic, or a firefighter. I mean, that's hard work, and they're putting their lives on the line every day. I can still be around that, but I can help in other ways in the world of reporting.
Right. So what were your goals as a young adult? Was it becoming a journalist, or were you still indecisive of where you were going to
It's kind of indecisive, because we took these, our high school had these criminal justice programs that was, the goal was to prepare us for a career in law enforcement. So I really thought, okay, that's the route I'm going to go. But the more I did work with the TV station, I thought this is for me the ability to do what I want to do with law enforcement, but also there's that creative aspect to it with the photography, the videography, the editing, the storytelling, writing. There was just such a much more creative aspect to that. And so in high school, I knew I was either going to go into law enforcement or I was going to go into some sort of world where I could do work with cameras.
Right.
And they kind of meshed at some point.
Right. When do you graduate?
97.
In 1997.
Yes, sir.
What did you do right after?
Right after, I ended up having a full-time job at the TV station that I was at. Day afterwards, they said, okay, here's your full-time schedule now. And I stayed there for a couple of more months before getting a job offer to go to Tyler, Texas. Tyler, Longview, Texas.
Right.
It was the first time that another TV station called up and said, we have an opening up here for a photographer, a cameraman job up here. We'll pay you a little bit more. Do you want to come up here? And I said, hell yeah, let's go.
Right. And when you say photographer, cameraman, you mean behind the
scenes. The guy with showing up with the big camera, the light, the big news truck pulling up. I had no desire to go in front of the camera. That's my passion still to this day, is shooting the video, to be, operating the camera and taking pictures and images with your eyes and then sharing that with the world.
Right. So my next question was going to be, where'd you go to college? But you didn't go to college. Before we started the podcast, I asked you, it's like, you didn't go to college?
No, because when I graduated high school,
you were doing what you wanted to do.
The next day, the TV station said, okay, here's your full-time job. Right. I did spend a semester at the Art Institute of Houston. Okay. Because I'm told that's what you're supposed to do. When you get done with high school, you're supposed to go to a college or community college. The closest thing that I could find that would kind of fit what I wanted to do, the Art Institute of Houston had it was a video degree program of some sorts. I did that for a semester, and Mr. Longoria, I remember studying in class one day, and I said, I already know all this stuff. Right. Why am I here?
You had the experience, actual
experience. I did, years. By this point, I'd been doing the work at the TV station for 3-4 years. Right. And I would think, okay, well, I've got to pay this much for a semester, and I was driving. I was still living in Port Arthur, and I was driving to Houston, go to class, come back to Port Arthur, work, go to sleep, get back up, go to class, and I think I spent maybe a semester there, and I said, this isn't for me. I'm already doing what I want to do. I don't need to go to college.
So by this point, you already had decided 100%, right, that this was going to be your career.
The desire to be in law enforcement faded at the end of my high school, time in high school, and once the TV station offered me full-time employment the day after I graduate, I said, all right, well, this is the path I'm meant to take.
Was it because they offered you a job, or was it because this is what you really wanted to do?
But I think both. Both. I was in my hometown. I was in the middle of the excitement of everything. I had the connections of, the local town officials, and I knew where to go, and I was doing what I loved. Right. My job was to listen to police scanners and go chase after the news and share those stories, and I was getting paid to do what I like.
Yeah. So what was your first job title exactly when you first get hired right after high school? What is your job title?
News photographer editor. Okay. Is what it is, and that's.
But you did other jobs.
Yeah, in a TV station. I mean, even like at KBTX now, when you're hired on, we're doing everything. My job is my title is news anchor, executive producer. But I have camera gear in my car right now. I shoot, I edit, I write, I post stories on the website. You kind of do everything. Right. You are exposed to, especially in these smaller markets. This is why I love working in a smaller market, because you get to do a whole lot more.
Right. Yeah. Tell me about when you go to Tyler. Is it Tyler?
Tyler Longview.
Tyler Longview. Sir. Tell me about what you did there.
I worked in the Longview Bureau. So I was hired by the TV station in Tyler, but they had a bureau in Longview. So they said, that's where you're going to go work. I got my first apartment in Longview, and that was my first taste of freedom. Leaving Port Arthur.
How old are you by this time?
18.
Oh, so you're
19.
still young.
Oh yeah.
And
out
19,
on my own.
right? On your own.
I remember my apartment being $425 a month, and it was a nice apartment too. How far we've come, right?
Again, back in the day, 420 was a lot of money.
Yeah, and it was a nice apartment, and they gave me a news unit, and you'll remember this, that they gave me this bag phone. I remember plugging up this phone in the car,
right,
with a cigarette lighter charger. And it was a whole phone that you'd have to pick up. I had the pagers, and that was my job for. I think I was there for 2 years maybe as a photographer, and I enjoyed it. It was great, and stayed there until I got the next job offer.
And where was that?
Which was in Raleigh, North Carolina, and
all the way to Raleigh.
All the way to Raleigh, and you want to see a mom's heart getting broke, calling her up and saying, "Hey, I'm going to move on to the other side of the country."
Because by this time you're probably 20, probably.
I remember turning 21 in Raleigh, and I remember that because I had just moved to Raleigh. I turned 21, and I knew nobody. And the way I celebrated, I went to the Kroger store in Raleigh. I guess it was a Kroger. I don't know, Piggly Wiggly or something. And I remember going and buying my first 6-pack of beer.
Oh, okay.
And saying, okay, I'm 21, I can do this. And I went home and.
What brand was it? What was the first beer that you bought?
Budweiser. We were a Budweiser family growing up. My dad, that's all my family drank was Budweiser.
Okay.
And I went and did that and went home and drank a 6-pack by myself.
Right. How did you end up in Raleigh? I mean, what was the connection there?
So in TV, to a lot of people will start their career in a town like this, like in Bryan or Port Arthur or Victoria, Texas, Corpus Christi. You start in these smaller markets, and then you either have connections or through the network you have people in medium-sized markets who are looking to fill open vacancies, or you just apply. And so once you get a couple of years of experience in a place like Bryan, you then apply to go to work in Austin. You send a resume tape out and a resume. So kind of like a reel that shows your work. And you go spend a couple of years in a place like Austin, and then you go to Houston, Dallas, a bigger market. And then from there, you go to your New York or LA or Chicago. Then you go to your networks. That's kind of from theory,
local, try to go all the way to national.
Very local to national. That's typically the path that journalists like to take. So in the case of me going from small towns in Texas to Raleigh, which is the 29th largest market in the U.S., that was me just applying to places. I was sending out resume tapes, and I got a bite in Raleigh, and they flew me up there, and I got a job offer to go work there.
Are you doing the same thing as behind the scenes?
Still a cameraman.
Okay.
That's my passion.
What was after that? Because you told me that you've been to maybe 6 different cities.
So I went from Raleigh, North Carolina, to Las Vegas. Got a job offer there.
And why'd you leave there?
I'm 22 now, 23.
In Las Vegas. Yeah.
And you get an offer to go to Las Vegas, no questions asked.
Right.
Absolutely. And again, I'm still kind of on my own, and I go off to Las Vegas and live in this is still to this day one of the best jobs I've ever had. I was the overnight breaking news chaser in Las Vegas, Nevada. These folks gave me, I thought they were silly, giving a 23-year-old a car and a camera, and inside this car, boy, it was all decked out in lights and 5, 6, 7, 8 police scanners inside, and that was, I'd go in at 10 at night, and until 6, 7 in the morning, I would just chase the breaking news in Las Vegas. The most wild job I've ever had. It was insane. I loved it.
What was the wildest thing you saw in Las Vegas?
That's a good question. There were many.
Is it mostly alcohol related?
There was a lot of shootings, a lot of crimes, a lot of. I honestly, there wasn't that much breaking news that I covered on the Strip. But there were a lot of things that I remember going and covering out in the neighborhoods of Vegas.
People who actually live,
or
residents of Las Vegas. Right?
Yeah, and Vegas was a tough city to to navigate and to live in because it was such a nomad city. The people that would come and go, I don't remember making a whole lot of friends there because people would come and then a year they'd leave, and so it was tough to kind of get settled and have a friendship group and get to know people, especially when you're working an overnight shift like I was doing. It got old pretty quick. I had my fun, and I would say the most interesting stories that I did cover were when we had entertainment events to go and cover. I think the one moment that stands out is I forget which event it was, but Destiny's Child was there, and being able to interview and talk to them and to see these other celebrities that would come through. And what makes me upset is this is before cell phones were a thing where you could take pictures and say, "Well, look what
People
I just
believe
did."
you.
I have no documentation that I did any of these things because it was before cell phone time and selfies. And
What celebrity did you enjoy meeting the most?
you know what I this is going to sound silly. Out of the celebrities that I've met, the most fun interview that I ever did at the Luxor, you've got the Blue Man Group, who I think they still perform today.
Yes, they do.
And they had just started their show, I believe, at the Luxor, and they invited us to come and to play along, and that was a blast. I don't know why that one stands out most, but doing that interview and that story with them was that was good TV. I remember having really a lot of fun setting up the cameras and everything and participating with them.
Where do you go after Las Vegas?
So Las Vegas, I go to. So this is where I make the shift to on air. This is when I start doing reporting work. I go from there to Lake Charles, Louisiana, which is right next to Beaumont Port Arthur. There was a job position that came open, and it was to help start up a Fox affiliate. So it was a brand new TV station. The deal was come down there, help start that up, help train some of the new photographers, and also transition into an on-air role and transition into a little bit of a manager role. Some kind of overseeing. I think the job was news anchor / assignment editor is what I went to go do, and so I took that job, and I went from making quite a bit of money in Las Vegas to making, I think my starting salary was $19,000 in Lake Charles.
Right.
One thing you folks have to know in journalism, you don't get into it for the money. Eventually, you can work your way up into the bigger markets, and once you get to the national markets, sure, the money's there.
Right. You're trying to get experience on what you can.
Right.
Right.
And so the sell was, if you come down to Lake Charles, we'll put you on air. We'll get you trained to do news anchoring and live reports, but you're not going to make much money. Right. And I said, all right, let's go. And so I did. That's made the move back to Lake Charles.
But did you have an interest in being in front of the camera at this time?
It piqued my interest.
Okay.
After spending, at that point, 6-7 years behind the camera, I thought, all right, I'll give it a shot. I'll see what this is about. And went down there and started doing work in front of the camera. I remember the first newscast that I anchored that was kind of my show. We started a 5:00 show. I'd just been named the news anchor for that show, brand new show. Right. And I remember exactly what day it was because it was September the 10th, 2001. The next day, the second day we have this show is September the 11th, 2001. And so you have this entire newsroom of young kids, fresh out of school. This is a new TV station. We're all new in our jobs. We're all trying to get our feet wet. And one of the biggest events in our lifetime happens. And it was significant for Lake Charles because Lake Charles has a lot of refineries. The strategic petroleum reserves are located in that area. And I remember being in that newsroom that morning. We're watching what's happening on the TV, and we start hearing the scanners and everything going off, and they're declaring civil emergency, and everybody's panicking because that morning we didn't know where the next attack was coming from. And everybody starts talking about we've got the refineries here. We've got the oil reserves here. What if they come here? What if, are we a target? And everybody just kind of went into not panic mode, but it was like, okay, what do we do? We grew up that day. All of the young journalists in that newsroom, we had to figure it out real fast. Right. And that was a real, for me, moment, because again, before social media, before we could post things on Facebook, this is when people were still relying on TV and radio to figure out what the hell was going on that day. And we were going on the air explaining to people, as 22, 23-year-olds, we're having to explain what's happening in our backyard, and are we in danger or are we not? Worst case scenario, who are these people? What is Taliban? Where is all this coming from? Who's Osama bin Laden? Now, we've never heard that name before. Mm-hmm. And we were all figuring it out as we went. And that team that was in there today, many of them I'm still friends with, because that was a day in our life that we grew up really fast. And I think for us in media, in journalism, we learned that day just how important our jobs are.
Right. How did you prepare for that anchor show, September 11th?
I don't know that we did prepare. I mean, we never thought that, especially on our second day, we were going to throw scripts out the window and just cover what we could. But we had a news director, an experienced news director, the lady who was running it, the lady who hired me. Her name is Carrie Anderson, and she she grabbed our hands and said, "Okay, here's the plan, A, B, C, D." We still had a dry erase board in the newsroom where we were writing down who's going to check on what. Here's who, you go do this, you go do that, and we're just kind of following her lead. Mm-hmm. She was a fantastic news director, and she said, "Okay, here's the role we have to play today. We have to communicate. We have to make sure people are understanding what's going on. We need to be calm. Right. We need to be the clarity in a world of chaos." And that's still the role that journalism, I strongly believe, has to play today in a world of chaos that is now cluttered by social media and misinformation. We have such an important role to play still. We have a lot more competition today. Yeah. But I still think when it comes down to it, your local media is what people rely on for answers, for clarity, for context, and for understanding. Right. And that's why I'm still doing this 25 years later.
What did you learn about yourself that day on September 11th?
I think I learned what role we have to play. And I think that, honestly, that day was the day that, for me, I knew that I made the right choice in my career path. Because it was, I don't think we slept for 2 days. We were just constantly glued in what was happening and trying to figure out what was going on. I remember going home and watching the evening news all night long, because everything that was coming down, I mean, we were learning as we went.
We were all stuck to the TV.
Yeah, because we couldn't go Google Afghanistan. We couldn't go Google, we were relying on TV and radio reports. Right. And that's, I think for me that day, the big takeaway was your job is important. Here's the role that you play, and that's what you've got to do moving forward. Right. Yeah.
Did you then move to a different city after Louisiana?
I went back to my hometown.
To do the news?
To do the morning news on the same station I started at. Okay. They had moved over to Beaumont. I got an offer to go be the morning news anchor there, so it was my second on-air job. And I stayed there for a couple of years and went to Oklahoma City after that for another on-air job. And when I was in Oklahoma City, I stayed there for about 7 years. I had 1 year in that 7 years in Oklahoma that I got out of TV to do work at the American Red Cross. Right. And then I got back into TV, and then I came and took the job here in 2015.
Well, why do you decide to go to the Red Cross, American Red Cross? Did you need a break?
I needed a break. I did. And I can tell you the night that I figured it out, and this is this isn't a proud story that I like sharing, but it's an honest one. I remember the night that I admitted to myself I need a break from this, and I remember being in our newsroom. There had been a small plane crash nearby, and we were close to getting off work that night. And our news desk said, "Hey, we need you to drive out, middle of nowhere. We got a plane down. Go, try to see what you can find out." And I just remember hearing that, and I was like, "Oh God, I'm tired. I don't." And that was the moment for me. I was like, I don't know if my passion's just gone or I'm burned out but I that was the first time I acknowledged this. I was tired.
Burned out.
Right? I was. And I said, okay, if I'm at this point and I still have another 20, 30 years of this career, something's got to give. And right at that time, I believe in all things happening for a reason. Right at that time, I had somebody ask me, I forget how I came across my radar, but somebody said, "Oh, there's this job opening at the American Red Cross in Oklahoma City, and it's to be the regional director of communications." So I'd be dealing with media, PR, sharing what the mission is for the Red Cross. Are you interested? I said, "Yeah, I think so," because I'm still kind of staying in that same sphere of these crazy stories that happen, but I'm now on that end of helping in a different way. I think journalism and sharing stories is a way to help your community and people, and but to actually go work for an organization that's their main mission. I said, yeah, I'll do that, and so I went to go work at the Red Cross for I think a little over a year. I was there.
How was your experience there?
It was fantastic. It was an eye-opening experience to see what work goes into running a nonprofit organization, and that's why here in Bryan and College Station, anytime a nonprofit asks me to do any kind of work on either if it's just getting the message out about an event or emceeing an event or sharing a post on Facebook, absolutely, because I understand by doing work with Red Cross there and working side by side with a bunch of other organizations, how difficult it is to run a nonprofit, how reliant you are on volunteers and sponsors and donors, what it means to be responsible to the donor dollars and not wasting money, being held accountable for what the mission is and what you do. There was just that learning curve in what it is to run a charitable organization in a responsible way. And then to take all of the experiences in the home fires, the apartment fires, the wildfires, the tornadoes and the floods that we responded to, and to take everything that we were able to do for the people who needed the help. That for me was just this eye-opening experience in helping others, and I loved it. I loved it. There were responses with our national disaster team that I went on. The Bastrop wildfires, I was deployed there for several weeks. There was a tornado in Oxford, Mississippi that I went to for 2 weeks, and worked on the ground there. So I did that for about a year and a half, and it was exhausting work, but it was rewarding work, and it was a learning experience in what it was to go and and in my role working with media, it was also this experience in being on the other side as a spokesman, as a communications director, meeting the needs of media and their demands and what they need and want, and how to share the message of an organization to the media. I learned it all as we went, and that was still something that I use today, and it's why I have such an appreciation for what the work that all of our nonprofits do here, because it's hard.
It is.
It's so hard.
It is hard. Longoria Boxing Club was nonprofit, and it wasn't easy being the head coach and running the nonprofit.
No, because you're doing, and you're doing so much. You're doing the work of 10 different people.
Yeah,
you got to fundraise. You got to plan. You have to engage, and I mean, just all these things are never ending,
Right.
and it's rewarding.
Right.
I'm
It,
sure
it, it's very exhausting,
yeah,
but you love it,
yeah,
and that's what you do,
yeah.
you know. When do you decide to go back into journalism,
So about a year and a half, maybe not that long.
and why?
There was the same TV station that I left in Oklahoma to go work in the Red Cross. They had a manager position come open. It was for an executive producer role at the TV station, and friends that I had worked with reached back out and they said, "Hey, sure you don't want to come back to TV?" I said, "Well, all right. It's not for reporting. It's not I'm not out in the field chasing things anymore." And it was a chance to dabble in management in a very powerful #1 TV station in a large market, and I said, "Okay, I am interested," and I did it because leaving the Red Cross as a staff member, I still had the opportunity to do work at the Red Cross as a volunteer.
Right.
So I stayed and volunteered with the Red Cross, and I'm still a Red Cross volunteer and now a board member for our local
Okay.
Red Cross. So I never really left the Red Cross. Right. I was no longer a staff member, but by that time I think enough time had passed that I was interested in going back to TV in a different role. Mm-hmm. So it was new. There was a lot of learning to do in a management role where I could take all of my experience both as a photographer, as an editor, as a reporter, as a news anchor, but now also my experience working with governmental leadership and disaster planning and emergency response and communications and PR and marketing, combining all
together,
of that.
right?
It did. And so now I've got this opportunity to go and mentor and teach and share all of this. At this point, I'm 32, maybe 33, 34. Now I'm sharing this with younger people in our newsrooms, and that my role was executive producer of the morning show. So I oversaw a team of producers for a 3-hour morning show that had a fairly large staff, and we remained dominant in the ratings, #1. Breaking news was our thing. Severe weather was our thing, and that was my time in Oklahoma. Stayed there until it was time to move here.
How did you end up at KBTX?
So I ended up at KBTX.
Was this the main reason you came here to Bryan College Station?
I wanted to move back to Texas.
Okay.
That was it. And I wanted to move back here for family. That after being away, because I left when I was 18,
Right.
and after being away for so many years, my parents are getting older. My sister now has kids. My friends are doing things that I'm missing out on. At this point, I'm kind of ready to come back home. And I had an agent at the time, and I told my agent, get me to Houston, get me to Austin, just get me a little closer to home. And there were a couple of things she put in front of me, but she said there's also this anchor opening in Bryan College Station, Texas. What do you know about that? I said, I know there's a school that's, I don't know much beyond that of College Station.
Right. So you've never heard of Bryan, Texas, but you've heard of Texas A&M University,
absolutely.
Of course, right?
I know it's
but
here.
not the community, not the cities.
Well, and when you grow up and you work in TV in Texas, you do know of KBTX. KBTX has had a history in the television industry, especially in Texas, as being one of those small market stations that produce good people that you want to hire from KBTX to go work in your Austin market or your El Paso market, or you know if they're coming out of KBTX, they're ready to go.
Right. It's a good stepping stone for
it is.
a lot.
It's a good starter and a stepping stone for something bigger. So I knew of KBTX. Everybody in Texas television knows of KBTX. And I know College Station, and I know that A&M's a thing, but that's really, I didn't know much beyond that. And my agent said, just go check it out. So I came here, spent 2 days here for my interview, drove around town. They put me up at one of the hotels on University, and met everybody here, learned a little bit more about the station, the role the station plays in this community, that it's not just a TV station. It is part of the community. And the company's great. They've got this desire to not just go and put news on the air, but to also support the nonprofits in the area, to be part of the whole piece, the puzzle that is what makes Aggieland.
Right.
And I just, that paired with Texas A&M, and when you open a map, we talked about this, when you open the map and you see, I'm this close to Houston and Dallas and Austin and San Antonio, and the East Woods are here, and I can make it to the beach in 2 hours.
Right.
And I can be home in 2.5 hours.
Right. Yes.
Everything just kind of added up, and I said, okay, actually, yeah, I can do this. And I accepted the job in 2015, and my start date here was May 25th, 2015.
Wow. Do you get hired as a news anchor?
News anchor for the 4 and 5 p.m. shows.
Okay.
So that was also a move up. I now had 2 evening shows that I was going to anchor, and everything just lined up. I was back in Texas, close to home, close to Houston and other big cities, at a solid TV station in a good community, a community that's growing, a community that has a lot to be proud of. A&M brings its level of excitement. Brian's got the cultural aspect of it. College Station's another growing. Everything just kind of added up, and I said, okay, I'll do. I signed a 2-year contract, 2 or 3 year contract when I moved here. So we'll see it, and if I don't like it, that's fine. I'll go to Houston after that. That's whatever.
We're still here.
That was 8-9 years ago,
Right.
and I just fell in love with the place. It's
What have you learned about our city and our community from being here all these years?
I think for me, here's what's fascinating about Bryan and College Station. It's almost like 2 worlds colliding. You've got Texas A&M and everything that it brings with it. Right. People from around the world, notable figures, education and opportunities. And then you pair that with what Berlin's doing, and now the Rellis campus, and we're now part of the state emergency management response system, Texas Task Force 1. Right. A&M now is part of this Space Force program. You have all of that, the Bush Library, and so the way, as an outsider, the way I look at it is, you have all of this amazing stuff that
in one small box
is centered around A&M, and I'm not even talking about the athletics and Kyle Field and A&M football and just all the excitement that brings, paired with 2 communities that I think have 2 distinct personalities, but yet come together to make one place that is you're proud to live in, that you're excited to be in. When there's a new restaurant that opens, everybody's excited to try it. When there's something that happens, good or bad, everybody's paying attention. But most importantly, everybody cares about one another. When we do go through our hurdles and our challenges and our tragedies here, and I think maybe that I wasn't here, but maybe that goes back all the way to the bonfire collapse. When you see a community that comes together in the way that this one does and cares, and then you pair that with good schools, good local government, and it's growing. I look at my hometown, and not a knock against Port Arthur, but there's not much happening there now, and there's not much growth, and there's nothing to look forward to. We have everything to look forward to here. Look at downtown, the way it grows. Look at what they're doing in Midtown, in both Bryan and in College Station. We've got major interstates that are now planned for it.
And we got all these beautiful mediums.
I didn't say it was perfect. But for the most part, I'm excited to see where we're going to be in 5 years, in 10 years. Right. Look at the way Northgate is. It's like a mini city in Northgate now. Right. For better or for worse, it's growing, and at least that's something that we can look forward to. I would rather be in a community that is growing and you see this excitement and this momentum than to be in a town that is dying, and there's not much to be proud of, and we're struggling. I'd rather be on the other end of that.
What changes would you like to see in our community, in cities?
We have to do something with housing. We have to.
In what way?
In making it just more affordable.
Yeah.
In finding, I've got too many people that I talk to, too many families, too many friends who say, look, we're being squeezed out. We can't afford the homes that are being built right now. And there's a lot of communities that are being planned, and a lot of communities being developed with these beautiful but expensive homes, and not enough being planned and built for those who are more middle and low income families. And we're seeing these larger, more expensive communities being built, which is fantastic. We love to see that development and growth. Great. And we see all the high rises going up with student housing and the ag shacks and everything else. Great. That's fantastic. But what are we doing for the people who fall in the middle? What are we doing for the people who are on the low income side of things? Where's that development? Where's that growth? Where's that conversation taking place? I love this area, but we've got to do something to make sure we're not leaving people behind as we grow.
Right, because that's what it feels like.
Yes.
That's what it feels like.
And everything that I just said about how exciting that this is to watch and see and to grow, I stand by that. I would much rather see us flourishing and see us with the momentum that we got. But we can't leave behind those families that made this place, that aren't necessarily connected to Texas A&M or coming in to take a job at the biomedical corridor. And we've got to make sure the people who are born here, that are raised here, and that have always called this home still have the same opportunities to live in a good neighborhood, to make sure drainage is working in their streets, and that they've got grocery stores nearby that they can easily access, and that they are living in affordable, good homes that aren't running down and that present problems. We got to make sure housing is top of mind here. We just do. That's a long-winded answer to your question. But it's one I'm passionate about. We have to figure something out to make sure we can put families in affordable places that are nice.
How do we fix that? Who do we go to? Who do we talk to about that?
I think you have to.
Is it just the market? Is just
I mean, you got the marketing's there, but I think you just and I'm not a housing expert. I wish I did have the answers, and I don't want to pretend that I do or that I even know the rules of zoning but I imagine you have to start with city halls and work on where, before we permit and give blessings to these developers that are coming in and building the high rises and building these master communities. Are we reaching out to developers to come in and make more affordable home communities? And maybe we are. I don't want to sit here and bash the folks at City Hall in Bryan and College Station, because maybe they are, and I'm sure it is something they hear about and consider. I just would love to see more of it, and if it is happening, let's talk about it, because I think that's what maybe worries people more. We live in a great community. We have good schools. We just need to make sure we have good jobs. And we got to make sure that we have good housing. I sound like a politician now. And
Rusty from mayor.
I would never go down that road. Absolutely not. But because politicians have a tough job. And God bless the people who are on the city council and the school boards and county commissioners and the mayors.
It's a hard job.
That is a hard job. It is a thankless job. So I don't ever want to sit here and bash the work that they're doing. But I'm just pointing out the obvious.
It's a concern.
We got to do something.
Rusty, what has been the hardest story that you've reported in your career? And how did you handle that reporting?
Hardest story that I've ever reported in my career. There was for me, the most heartbreaking story that I've ever covered it was a tornado in Oklahoma. In I'm trying to recall the year. I want to say 16, 17. I'm going to get the year wrong, so I'm not going to say the year. But a few years back, a EF5 size tornado went through Moore, Oklahoma, which is a suburb of Oklahoma City.
I think I remember that.
And went right through the city. And the day that happened, my assignment was to go to Tower Plaza's elementary school, which took a direct hit. And they had 7 elementary kids who lost their lives. And my job was, that's your assignment. Go cover that. And I remember getting there and being on the grounds, and one of the incident commanders came up to us in the media group and said, "Okay, put down the cameras. No video, but we want to take you onto the grounds and show you the work being done to find the bodies." And him saying that, those words are etched in my mind. And I remember us walking through. This is probably 1, 2 in the morning. I mean, because they're still trying to find the bodies. Well, after 3, 4 p.m. when this tornado hit, and walking through and having to go and retell that story over and over and over, and watching them pull the bodies out, watching the stretchers and the body bags. That was probably the most horrific thing that I've ever seen, and the one and only time in my career I've broken down on camera. I was speaking with ABC News maybe, or somebody. There was somebody that I was doing an interview with from the scene there, and they said, "You grew up on the coast, you've covered hurricanes and other catastrophic events, and now you've got this in Moore. How does all of that compare?" And I don't know what it was about them. Maybe I was just sleep deprived and tired. I just broke down. And I said, this, at least with a hurricane, you can prepare for hurricanes. Right. You have days notice for a hurricane. These were kids in this school who were learning how to spell, who were playing with building blocks, and now they're dead. Right. And those couple of days were just horrific days.
Do you remember how many people died in that tornado?
The 7 at the elementary school, I don't remember how many else, because my attention and focus was just on that. Okay. I don't remember how many other people lost their lives. That to answer your question, I think is the hardest story that I've ever covered.
What do you think is the most important thing, role of a news anchor?
The most important thing that a news anchor can do is to understand their community and to be able to provide clarity and context to the headlines of the day. I say that because in a newsroom that like ours, I think there's a couple of things that make a newsroom successful. One, you have to have a diverse newsroom. You have to have, because if we have a lot of reporters and journalists who all come from the same background, who all look alike, who all think alike, who all go do the same thing every day, that's not a reflection of your community. Your newsroom has to be a reflection of the community. We need the diversity. We need So, with that being said, I think one thing that can make a news anchor great is somebody who has been in the community, that understands it, understands what's great about it, understands the challenges, and understands the people. And so I am not saying that I'm this great news anchor, and being somebody from the outside who moved here. I'm not an Aggie. I didn't grow up here. I still am trying to get to that spot where and trust me, I hear it. I know people say, "Oh, you're our go-to guy. You're the guy who covers all the news." Right. And I don't think personally I'm there yet. I still feel like there's so much about this community that I need to learn, more people that I want to meet, more stories that I want to hear. I think what makes a great news anchor is somebody who really knows the community inside and out, so that as things happen, good and bad, as the community grows, as we face our challenges, we are able to put some context on that and say, okay, this may be happening, but here's why. Here's who is making headlines today. Here's where they came from. We have to know much about our past as we move into the future. Right. And so to have a news anchor, and thankfully I've got a great colleague, Carla Castillo, right, who does morning. She's been here longer than I have, so she knows a little bit more than I do. My boss has been here longer than the two of us, so that's great to have. Our sports guy, Daryl, he's been here 30 years. So when you have a TV station that has staff that has been here long, Crystal Galney, who does our noon show, grew up in Bryan. So she comes into the newsroom sometimes and says, okay, hey, this is a big deal because ABC, here's what I know about this, here's what I know about that. The longer that I'm here, the more I can confidently go on that news desk every night and deliver the news in a more confident way with understanding of the whys.
Right.
And to be able to go into our newsroom every day and say, listen, I've been talking to people who live in this neighborhood. Here's concerns that they have. Here's why people are frustrated with medians. Here's why here's why some businesses say they're struggling right now.
Right.
Here's we can take all of this after years and years of being here, and I can go to the news desk every night with that confidence and knowledge and understanding of what makes this town tick, with better understanding. But I'm nowhere near there yet, which is why I still love going out, and when you invite me to do this, absolutely, because I'm hoping that this reaches even more your audience, your people, your viewers, and I hope they learn a little bit more about me, so that they trust and know that they can come to me and share their stories. Because the more I hear from your viewers, the more I have a better understanding of going on the news desk every night and being their representative. Because that's all a news anchor and a news reporter is. We are representatives of our community, and that's it. I'm just telling you what's going on. I'm telling you the facts of what you need to know, things that you should know. Here's the events that are happening around town. Here's the new nonprofit or business you should go support. I'm just a spokesperson for the community. But being somebody who's not from here, I'm still in that learning phase.
Right. Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but you are the go-to guy.
I do.
and you're on Facebook and you're on all this social media, and I see it every time. Hey Rusty, what's going on here? Hey Rusty, did you see this? And I don't know if you know it or not, but you are the go-to guy. Do you enjoy being that go-to guy?
Absolutely. I don't take that for granted at all. I have friends that I'm coworkers like, don't you ever get tired? No. That's when people come up to me.
They trust you. People trust you.
Yeah, if I'm at First Friday and I have people coming up to me and saying hi and can we take a picture, or can you help me with this, help me with that? Absolutely. That doesn't ever get tiring. It really doesn't. You got to understand, in my life growing up, watching local news, even as when we were kids, the newsman was a voice of authority. It was a watchdog. It was you were the kind of the representative of the community that you're covering, and so in that role, I don't take that for granted. It is an honor.
Right. Do you enjoy that social or the local celebrity status?
I don't like the word celebrity. I really don't. It makes me. I don't know. I get weirded out by the word celebrity.
But you kind of are.
But I'm not. I'm just. I like being the go-to guy because I like being in the loop. I want to know what's going on. I want to know what's happening in these neighborhoods, and social media can be. Social media can be a blessing. It's also messy, and I know that. And there's some stuff that I'll post just because I know the engagement and I know we're gonna have a little fun with it. But I also try to be responsible with it. I really do, because there's a lot that comes into my inbox that I don't share because I'm not here to embarrass people. I'm not here to knock anybody down. I do want to be informative. and I don't want to sugarcoat anything. But social media it's a great tool to have in our toolbox as a journalist, because it helps there's the immediate connection that I have with our viewers. They can message me, I can quickly respond. I know what's going on. They're helping me, I'm helping them. That's a great transaction I have that
It's a good tool.
15, 20 years ago we didn't have.
Exactly.
You know, if you wanted to reach a news anchor 20 years ago, you maybe call the newsroom. Hopefully they'll answer.
Emails, faxes, and
But now, I mean, I give my cell phone out so many times. You know, text me if you got breaking news. Text me. Let me know. You know, if the power's out, text me. I'll try to find out why.
What local community organizations are you involved in? I know you're involved with the Hispanic Forum, right?
Yeah, I have been honored to be the MC of the Hispanic Forum's Scholarship Gala for the last.
Yeah, you were telling me you were there when I got my Person of the Year.
2019 Person of the Year.
Right.
Absolutely. So I've done that for several years. I have served with Project Unity, I Heart Brian, Health for All, the American Red Cross I'm still on the board of, the A&M Corps Cadets Hall of Honor Gala, IMC. There's, 5, 6, 7, 8 other events that I MC yearly, different organizations around town. Essentially, if a nonprofit reaches out to me and says, can you do this? And if my calendar is free for that day, I will say yes. If it is a nonprofit, consider me in. Right. I am happy to help.
What does Rusty do when he's not reporting the news? What are your hobbies? What do you love doing?
Sit on my couch and I don't watch when I go home. I try not to when I'm relaxing. I'll just put on a movie. I like comedies. I like stand up. You know, Netflix specials. Anything that makes me laugh, because our days can be heavy sometimes. I do like to just. I want to be entertained and have a good time.
Right.
Yeah. So sit at home, go to the movies, take a little road trip to Houston. You know, nothing too crazy.
Right. With social media and all these YouTube channels and all this internet, where do you see the news organizations in the future? Because everybody has their own news channel now on YouTube. Yeah.
The person who figures that out becomes the next billionaire. We have no idea. Here's what we do know. We do know in television, we can't be the next newspapers. The problem with the newspapers is they were so hesitant to embrace digital and so hesitant to embrace social media. We see what happened at newspapers. We're not blind. We see what's happening with television. It's still there, and I think television is always going to be a medium that will be there. But where do most people get their news now, especially under the age of 35? Everybody's on this
clicking
now.
And everybody has
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok is a big one. Right. YouTube is one of the biggest social media sites out there. So I don't think anybody in our industry knows where we're going to be 5, 10, 15 years from now in terms of how we're putting out our content. What I do know is we have to go, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, the viewer came to us. It was a set time. People ate dinner, 6 p.m., you watch the news, 10 o'clock before you went to bed, you watched the news. You came to us. It's the other way around now. We have to go where you are. So what we, KBTX, and our parent company and all the other TV stations out there are doing is just making sure that our content is available wherever you are. Facebook, YouTube, Roku, Alexa, podcast we're diving into now. That's why I love this. You got such an amazing setup here. We're trying to go everywhere you're going. We're making sure that we are there when you're free to watch. Right. So live streaming, archived streaming, our app, our weather app, Facebook, Instagram. I just started on TikTok because I don't think that's going anywhere. Despite what our government wants to do, I think TikTok is going to be around. So I'm trying to expand my reach on TikTok, which is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I don't know. That's such a great question. And it's the thing I think that keeps most TV executives up at night. How do we keep doing what we're doing with less eyeballs on the TV, but also as many, if not more, people looking for a place to go for facts and information, just in different places?
Rusty, your favorite band?
My favorite band, I will have to say, all time will be the Beatles.
Okay. There you go. Look at this guy. He's saying, yeah.
My Spotify list is all over the place. It can be classic rock, hard rock, country music, dance music, pop music. I'm really all over the place. But when you talk about like just one of the greatest of all time, I'll always tip a hat to the Beatles.
The Beatles. Favorite movie?
So on that note, the Beatles, if you've never seen the movie Across the Universe,
I have.
Have you really?
Yes.
One of the best.
I think
movies.
I saw it in the movie theaters, as a matter of fact.
It's one of the best movies ever. It takes the Beatles their albums and puts it on a timeline. It uses characters from the that era. If you've not seen it,
There's a few Beatles movies as well. Have you seen Is it called Yesterday? That's a pretty funny, cool movie about the Beatles.
Yeah, Across the Universe is.
Yeah, I remember
there.
seeing that a long time ago.
It's been out for a while.
Favorite food?
Favorite food? If it's just a casual night, I'm always down for some Chinese or pizza. But just a good old pepperoni pizza is kind of my like comfort food.
Right.
Yeah.
Favorite local restaurant? Let's say favorite local restaurants. Restaurants, not restaurant.
You're gonna get me in trouble with this one.
Where do you go? Where do you like going? What's your go-to Friday night spot?
So when you ask what's great about this community, and here's what's wild. I've been here for 8-9 years now, and I will still pass restaurants in this town. I'm like, I haven't been there yet. We have so many great places.
Yeah.
I was much lighter when I when I moved here. I was a skinny thing. I'm trying to avoid your question. So I will say.
Well, it doesn't have to be a favorite restaurant. Let's say where do you like?
I'll name a couple of them.
Okay.
I will say one of the more underrated restaurants in this town. It's kind of in a hidden place. Ohana Grill. Ohana is just what it's called. College Station, Southwest Parkway and Texas Avenue. There's a Planet Fitness right there in that shopping center. Ohana Grill is kind of off in the back. It's nothing fancy. It's not fancy at all. Some of the best Korean food. Try Ohana Grill. Mexican food is a weakness for me. Okay. Huge weakness for me. If I'm just with friends, we bounce, and we rotate it. We'll go from Papa Perez. I love cilantro. Of course, we'll do Casa Rod. Gringos is a go-to in College Station. And then, oh God, why am I blanking on Highway 6?
Is it Cuco's?
Locos.
Los Cucos?
Los Cucos, thank you. Love that place. Yeah. So, Mexican food, I bounce all over the place. Right. Yeah.
Anything you want to add to the podcast before we go?
I just appreciate you doing this. These are the things that we need more of in our community. The more voices we get out there on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, when you have somebody like yourself who's doing this and inviting people in to share their stories, you're archiving history. You're archiving for generations down to be able to come back and one day to look and go, here's what they were talking about in 2024. Here's who these people were, and here's this right here. Best use of money and time, I think, is just documenting the stories of this community. And for you to invite me to come on and to be a part of this, to learn a little bit more about you and your family. And I hope this reaches people who will then reach out to me and share their stories, the good and the bad.
Right.
That's what I would end on is I appreciate everything you're doing.
Well, thank you for being here again. Any greetings you'd like to send out before we go?
No, just thanks. You say I'm the go-to guy. If you have ever sent me a message, a Facebook, a tweet, or an email, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I mean, it does mean the world to me that I'm trusted, and I don't ever take that for granted.
What's your message to our community?
Keep doing what you're doing. Be yourself. I hope the city of Bryan doesn't lose its character ever. Right. The city of Bryan, and this is where the culture is, the character. I hope we don't lose that as we grow. Yeah. College Station has such just great tradition and strong values. I hope we don't lose that as we grow. Together, when you mesh the two, because I think College Station is one thing, Bryan's another, and when you combine it all and put the cherry that is A&M on the top, it's just one good community.
Are you going to attend the Mexico-Brazil game?
Yeah. Yes.
we will see you there because that's going to be wild.
Absolutely. The fact that we have that coming into town,
it's as soon as it is now that we're going.
I cannot wait for that. not even the game, but that week is going to be incredible. Yeah. I really can't wait to see it.
Yeah, the game starts at 7. We'll be there at 10 a.m. in the morning.
Absolutely. That is going to be, I really do hope that opens the doors for other big things like that.
Many other things.
Man, what a chance to expose what we have to the world. Exactly. That's going to be incredible.
Well, Rusty, thank you for being on the podcast again.
Thank you.
And just like to remind everybody to please subscribe to Desde Cero. You know, Rusty's gonna get you in trouble if you don't subscribe to Desde Cero. Please subscribe, and let's keep this channel going.
Absolutely. Thank you,
And again, thank you for being here. And everybody, we see you guys next time. And thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all so much. See y'all later.